Welcome back. Tonight, as I told you, we are talking about food security and, of course, how to boost food production in this country. I told you who we have in the studio. Richard Aiyabei. Aiyabei is the Managing Director, that is Agricultural Development Corporation. He's here with us in the studio. Thank you so much, Richard, for joining us here.
Thank you.
Next to him is Githiga, Managing Director, Sasini Group Limited. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Stephen.
Thank you,
Do you have a Twitter handle?
Not for now.
You get there. Do you have one?
Not right away.
Dear Lord. I think I should open one for you, of course, at a fee, but that's something we can discuss off cameras. Now, tell me this. Number one, I want to start by finding out, poverty levels have dropped in Kenya from 46 to 36% of the population. What do you have to say about this? Are you excited?
Yeah, it's quite exciting if the poverty levels have fallen because that shows that more Kenyans have more money at their dispensation, and they can be able also to take care of their basic needs. So it's a very encouraging trend.
Well, of course, that was one of the #1 enemy after independence. The poverty level was supposed to go down, and it's exciting that it is coming now. Yeah.
Very well. Let's get straight to the issues at hand. Of course, food security, we all know, has been a big challenge in this country. But of course, we know that the government has prioritized this area in order to develop this country. You have seen from the slides, that I've done there, big plans. But of course, these big plans, they come with heavy responsibilities on both the public and, of course, the private sector. ADC, of course, you have a critical role to play in ensuring that we achieve this. I want to find out from you, with about 1.8 million acres of land under your management, how are you going to contribute to this?
Well, thank you very much. And as you've mentioned, yes, we have a big role to play. And I want to mention that we are already on it in embracing the government's Big Four agenda, and especially on food and nutrition security. Well, of course, there are many players in this food and nutrition security, and we are one of the players, that is Agricultural Development Corporation. We do grow maize, we grow seed maize, we grow potatoes, we have dairy animals, we have beef, we have sheep, we have goats. That is food. We know when we talk of food and farming, it is lack of maize. But when you have plenty of maize, the main product from maize is the ugali. But hardly do you eat ugali alone. It must go with something. Either it is milk, vegetable, it can be meat, and that is where we squarely feel we have a big role. Yeah, and
to play.
To play, yes.
Of course, there's a huge task ahead of us, as a country, to disabuse this notion that when it's come to food, we're talking about maize.
Yes.
There is a lot that we need to discuss, but of course we'll be coming back to that one. Stephen, when you see farmers, queuing to deliver maize to National Cereals and Produce Board, how does this make you feel, especially at a time when we are talking about food insecurity in this country?
Well, O'Brien, I think that's something that really needs to be looked at when we are talking of food security and the Big Four agendas, because for us to be able to produce enough for this country, we need to assure the farmers the market. We need to assure them on the prices that they'll get from their produce, because they are running these farms of theirs as investments. Yeah, so if they don't get the right returns, they don't get the assured prices, they don't get assured market, definitely they are not going to continue with the farming. So it's something that really needs to be addressed, so that really we encourage the farmers to be able to produce more for this country.
Of course, Sasini, you're very heavy, especially in the coffee and tea sector, but of course you're also branching into the production of nuts, that is macadamia, milk, and of course avocado. The question is, at some point, coffee used to be a big foreign exchange earner into this country. We know that coffee production, has plummeted to record lows. The question is, what do we need to do in order to boost production of this very valuable crop on the global market?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is true, Brian, that the coffee production in this country has fallen drastically. I think in the last 5-10 years, we are producing less than 50% of what we previously used to produce. One of the reasons, of course, amongst the many reasons that the production has fallen is most of the agricultural land, because coffee used to be grown around Nairobi, that is Kiambu, Roiro, most of this land has now been converted into real estate. And so that we have less land that we are cultivating coffee. But not to mention also that the main producers of coffee have been the small-scale farmers. And the management of the societies that really was, or cooperatives that were handling this coffee business have let down the farmers. And also the inputs to the coffee production has been quite high, from labor to fertilizer to all the various other inputs that we require. And also the weather patterns have not been very favorable to the coffee farmers. We rely on rain rather than maybe doing the irrigation to have coffee in the right seasons that we want. So there are many factors that has affected that. But what needs to be, in my view, one of the things that can be done is I see a shift from the areas that we used to produce coffee from, 50 to 100 kilometers radius of Nairobi. Definitely those areas will be under real estate in the coming future. So we see a shift to other areas which can produce coffee, places like Kitale, where we can also get good coffee, other areas in Western. And also we need to see how we can revive the cooperatives so that the farmers can be assisted through those cooperatives to make sure that we produce enough for this country. Otherwise, there is quite a lot of demand out there. Currently, the coffee prices currently they're quite high in the world market, and the Kenyan coffee is in high demand.
Definitely, Richard. With about 1.8 million acres of land, I don't think I know anybody else in this country who has as much land as you do. What percentage of this land is productive, and how much are we producing out of these?
Well, the bigger part of it is productive. I think what could be challenging is the water itself. Take, for example, the bigger part of what you're talking about, 1.7 million acres, is in Galana and Kulalu ranches. Well, of course, you hear there are ranches which can be converted to produce other crops, but it must be through irrigation. So the limiting thing is simply the irrigation. Otherwise, the productivity of the land itself may not be a big issue. We have other lands elsewhere in Nakuru region and in Kitale region where we are producing crops, maize, we're producing potatoes, and are rain-fed, which are basically, I would say, they are very fertile lands. The big challenge in those areas now is the climate change.
The climate change.
Climate change is real. We were producing a lot of maize in Nakuru region, but we've been forced to change the kind of crops we are doing in Nakuru because of climate change.
Very well. And you're talking about, irrigation here, and we know for sure that this country, in the last 1 month or 3 weeks, it has been flooding, and all this water is going to lake to Indian Ocean. Are you doing anything, to tap this water for irrigation, honestly?
Yeah, that is it. In fact, I remember last week we were in Trans Nzoia County, and I was privileged to accompany the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Irrigation, Honorable Kiunjuri. And he is passionate about arresting this water before it goes anywhere to waste by digging ponds, digging dams, and that is the route we are taking now. Even not only in along the rivers, but even floods. You know, where we have flash floods, we make dams. We are actually going to partner with the counties. The counties that have machinery and equipment that we can come together and make dams that will enable us to carry out irrigation. And that is it. You are right in saying that this water should not be allowed to go to the sea. Yes.
Let me come to you, Stephen. Under the food and nutrition agenda, one of the areas that the government wants to target is the issue of value addition. And we know for sure that we export 90% of our coffee and tea. And then we import it for consumption, which is an irony by all means. I want to find out, what is the role of the private sector, in value addition?
The private sector has a very big role on value addition because, as you rightly say, most of what we produce here within our country, we export it for processing elsewhere. That can be done here locally. But before the private sector comes in, I think the government also has to have the right policies from the government, which I'm sure that having engaged the various government agencies that the government is working on, we have to be competitive. We have to be competitive when we are doing value addition, because the issue of power, the issue of labor, the issue of tax incentives have to be addressed as a policy by the government. It's interesting because you'll find that things like tea, Kenya has the biggest black tea auction in Mombasa.
Yeah, in the world.
In the world, in fact, in the world. And this tea is exported to Dubai and other places for it to be packed and reshipped back to the neighboring, to Kenya and also the neighboring countries and maybe elsewhere in the world. So the government policies to encourage those incentives, because I'm sure the reason that the various producers have gone to such markets is because there are various incentives that they are getting there which are not here, and it's more cost effective for them to produce it there, as far as labor, as far as power is concerned, and the various other infrastructure that are required on the same. But what we are doing for us at Sasini, we already have for the products that we are doing. We already add in value things like tea. We already process it. We process it and pack it locally. We are looking to partnership where we can do additional value add for export. Things like coffee also, we already value adding and selling it locally and looking for partnerships for whom we can work on for international market. And same case for macadamia, where we have started, we are going to start very soon, that in our factory will also be over and above just exporting raw nuts, will also be value adding before we export.
And of course, when you're talking about value addition, let's talk about some of the cost inputs that goes into these. We have electricity, which is about 25% of the cost component. Or?
Yeah, almost 25 to 30%.
Almost 25 to 30%. Yeah. Let's now talk about even the cost of transport in this country. I mean, is it possible, to become competitive when you're operating in an environment whereby the cost of transport is very, very high, and of course the cost of energy?
It's not possible to be competitive. That's why I'm saying that's why most of the producers will not come into this market. But the government, as I said earlier, the government, in my view, is addressing this because you see the kind of infrastructure projects that are coming up. Because again, you would have all this produce, you're producing it within the various farms, and you have no way of getting it out there to the market. And secondly, I think there is huge investments as far as energy is concerned. Yeah, but I think we still have quite a huge shortfall. For us, sometimes we find that we have to run through with generators. We cannot rely on Kenya Power. And also, as other inputs that you require is labor. Yeah, I think the labor costs are also quite one of the highest, if you ask me, in this country. The labor the unions, when they are negotiating for the workers' packages, while I appreciate that the workers have to be well remunerated, we also need to look at their productivity. We need to look at are we being competitive compared to our other markets that we are trying to compete with. So those are things that need to be looked at.
Some of the things that I mean. And you have brought, a very interesting aspect here of, the cost of labor in this country. And it is no brainer, that the cost of labor in Kenya is the highest in the region, if not in Africa. Aiyabei, I want to find out from you. I mean, then how do we then become more productive while still maintaining, the current rates of wages?
I think the best way to go around it is mechanization.
Mechanization?
Mechanization.
Because and of course, this means that you have to send some people home.
No. Instead of sending people home, bring more land. For my case, we are bringing more land into production. And in order to manage the big land that will be brought into production without sending people home, we bring in mechanization. When you talk of mechanization, they will require skilled labor to operate them. And in that way, we will not be able to send anybody.
Would you preach such information or such gospel to our labor unions without being stoned?
No. I've said that the best thing is to increase the area under production. When you increase the area under production, you will require even more people to drive more machines. Like if you do not have adequate machinery and equipment, there are jobs and work that you cannot do manually. You cannot plow manually. We are past that. We need a tractor. We need a plow. We need a planter. And
with the tractor, you need a driver.
We need a driver.
Mechanic,
we need a mechanic.
We
need a supervisor. We need, and we're talking of going high-tech. We need somebody on ICT. We need these tractors now that they are GPRS controlled.
So you're saying that there is a way we can balance, between mechanizing agriculture and, of course, not making everybody redundant.
Exactly.
I want to still find out from you. I mean, when you talk about, one of the expectations from the government of ADC is to help partnering with the private sector, to put some of the land that you own under irrigation. Have you started these plans?
Yeah, we are in the process. We are in the process. It is a process because you need to also adhere to procurement procedures and rules on how to partner. How do you identify these partners among many? Because not all of them will be able to fit. So you have to go through a process whereby you mention, or we mention what we need. We need partners in, let's say, potato production. What kind of shortfalls do we have? We have the land, we have the seed, we have other structures. We may require somebody with a certain skill or certain machinery or equipment. We need to identify. There is a procedure which we utilize to make sure that we follow the law to the letter. And
that is the elephant in the room. And we know for sure that, the procurement process in the public sector is such a lengthy process. Stephen, how do we emasculate ourselves, from the delays that comes with these processes?
I don't know whether I'm the right person to talk on behalf of the government.
You stand on the other side of the private sector, and probably maybe you could be having ideas and say, well, I think we should do this.
But in my view, as you rightly say, and Richard has pointed out, is there's quite a lot of huge land that is underutilized or is idle, and the government, in my view's role, is to encourage the public-private partnership and also to provide the infrastructures for that land to be put in better use. So I think what needs to be done is just to see that the policies, the procedures that are there to encourage those partnerships and for private investors smoothless, and at the same time take the shortest time possible, because that really, if that land is put in good use, then it can really help the food shortage and security that we are talking about.
And as you plan to partner with the public sector, and we know for sure that the private sector is a bit hesitant, when it's come to partnering with the public sector because of some delays. For example, the issue of refunds, and we know that profit or sales of coffee and tea on the global market is supposed to be zero rated, right?
Sure.
And we know you have been having a lot of challenges, with KRA to refund this cash. So the question is the private sector willing and ready to work with the government?
I think we have no choice because really the private sector have the role to play in this economy, especially in the agricultural sector. As you know, really agriculture contributes to almost 24% of the GDP, and for us to be able to sustain that, there has to be a partnership between the government and the private sector. So I think it's a question of continuous engagement in the various forums to see where the bottlenecks are, and see really how it can be refined. I know the government now has come up with very good initiatives on special economic zones and the EPZ, especially for exporters like us. And if you are into those zones, of course, the issue of tax refunds really don't come up, because really most of all your inputs that you produce within those zones are really tax exempted.
So you're talking about innovation and new ventures. Aiyabei, I also want to find out from you. I mean, you're also into potatoes, you're also into sheep rearing, you're also into dairy farming. Do you want to boost production from these three sectors?
Yeah, we are in these areas by virtue of being in different agroecological zones. In potatoes, we are in the areas that are cool, the areas of Molo, Mount Narok area. Those are the areas that are best suited for growing potatoes. That is why we are there, and we are expanding. The government has really given us support, and we have constructed greenhouses, we have constructed laboratories, we have come up with new technologies of speeding or improving the production of potatoes, especially the seed, because potato seed is vegetatively propagated, and it is a little bit slow. So we have tried to go around it using the technology. We occasionally use even aeroponics technology, whereby we just grow potatoes on hanging, and then you pick the tubers. We also have introduced a tissue culture lab to speed up the production of the potatoes. That way, we are utilizing the technology to speed up production of basic seed. then we produce the certified seed. That is what goes to the farmer as certified seed potato, that when they grow, they will be able to realize the potential yields. It's not recycling. So that's why we are in Mount Narok, we are in Molo. Those are areas. In other areas, we are producing seed maize. Seed, as people produce more maize, they need seed. We are producing hybrid seed. Yep. It is also another process in itself, because in producing seed, you have to cross male rows and female rows. It is something, it might take a lot of time to explain how it is done. Yep. But that is what we do in Trans Nzoia County.
So these are some of the
yes.
measures that you have put in place,
yes,
to boost production.
Exactly.
In the interest of time, I want to come to you, Stephen. I mean, you have ventured into macadamia and avocado processing. What is this that you have seen that probably maybe you would want the government to see as well?
I think our main products, O'Brien, is tea and coffee. Yeah. But what we have seen as a company is that we want to diversify. And we've done research and seen that you can intercrop tea with avocado, and also you can intercrop coffee with macadamia. The demand for macadamia and avocado worldwide is very high. For avocado, because it has many uses. For avocado, first of all, it has health aspects, unlike other citrus fruits, where like oranges. So people who have sugar issues really would easily take the avocados without affecting their health. It can also be used for various meals, from sandwiches to the starters, and also for oil and for animal feed. And also same case with avocado, where it is in high demand in Asia and also in America, where you can use it for ice creams, for cereals, for oils.
Avocado ice cream?
Yeah, no, for macadamia. Oh, sorry, macadamia. Macadamia, you use the nuts for oil, for ice creams, and also for cereals. Yeah. So the demand is quite high, and there is a shortage of that. And also you want to diversify such that when your incomes are lower with tea and coffee, because some of these global farm products, they are dictated by the buyers. So at least you can be able to cushion your incomes from this diversification, and that is what we are doing over and above seeing the high returns that are there in these products.
Very well. Do you think, Aiyabei, from what Stephen is explaining here, do you see an opportunity?
Yeah, great opportunity. And we are open to partnership. Because we do not want to say we have everything that we require. And when we put up expression of interest requests, we normally receive quite a number. And I would say it is the best way to go. We are willing and we are ready. You had asked something about what we are also doing. And I thought it is good to mention that we are also in dairy production. We produce AFAS for sale to the farmers. We have different breeds. We have the Ashers, the Ganses, the Jerseys. And the other day, we also came up with a modern bull station. Yeah. You know, we have one bull station in this country. Bull station is a quarantine area. In the event that you have even a notifiable disease, then semen production is closed for up to 3 months. So we have come up, the government has funded us to come up with a modern bull station in Trans Nzoia.
The second one.
The second one. And we are proud to say we will be able to produce semen and be able to even sell to the neighborhood. This will enable the farmers to get more AFAS using AI, because we want to also come up with sexed semen lab. All the sexed semen in this country is imported.
Good.
We want to come up with it, and we will be able to serve the farmers, and they will be able to get more AFAs and means more milk. Milk is one of the components in the strategic food reserve.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Stephen, I also want to hear from you. I mean, you are talking about the competition of agricultural land by real estate. And now the question comes, I mean, and we know that, the land around Kiambu County is very productive. And it's not just in Kiambu County. If you go to Kirinyaga, you find out that land is competing, or agriculture is competing with real estate. The question is there any way we can balance the two and ensure that we become food secure and at the same time we accommodate our people?
Yeah, I think it's possible. It's possible. First of all, under the Vision 2030, I think the government had the agricultural land policy, which needs to be put in place. Because in some countries, you would not have agricultural land being converted to real estate and vice versa. And also the acreage, the demarcations that we do on these lands that is under agriculture, where we are subdividing and the land, and it becomes uneconomical for farming, while our competition is doing mechanized farming, and you are demarcating this land to small shambas that really you cannot be able to do mechanized. So I think the agricultural land policy is a high time that it's be looked at seriously. And of course the issue of efficiency as far as how to improve our yields, as far as input is concerned, as far as basically better ways of farming. My Richard just mentioned about the aqua farming, which is something, is the technology that is coming in, and also all the inputs that needs to be there. We've been relying on rains as far as agriculture is concerned. Take a country like Egypt. Egypt has only one river, River Nile, and they are feeding virtually everybody down the sub-Sahara to us, and we have all these water that is going to waste. So the infrastructures also really the dams, and just trying to see how we can mechanize and tap water for irrigation, and also the land policy, agricultural land policy, which is put in place. And making sure that we get the highest yields from whatever land that we have. So I think we can be able to sustain
our policy.
Sure.
Very well. Because we have to come to the end of this interview, Aiyabei, I want to give you 30 seconds. What are your final remarks?
My final remarks is, in order for us to produce enough food, we know that, and I've discussed well here about the land. Land is not expanding. The population is growing. We must increase production and especially productivity through means of technology, mechanization, irrigation, use of certified seed, and making sure that all agronomic practices are followed. You can now increase productivity. For example, if you do irrigation on maize, because I've done extensive research on maize. If you do irrigation on maize, you produce 1.5 times the rain-fed farming.
Interesting.
And then you will do 2 crops in a year.
Good.
That means by irrigating 3,000 acres, you will be able to get production that you would have gotten in 10,000 acres under rain-fed. That is the way to go.
That is the way to go. 30 seconds for you.
I think mine, Brian, is as private investors, first of all, we want really to thank the government, because we have been seeing that openness as far as trying to get the various policies that will encourage investments. There's still more that can be done as far as trying to support the agricultural sector, as far as policies is concerned, as far as infrastructure is concerned. And also the issue of production, the issue of efficiency, The labor cost is definitely a deterrent because if you take the case of things like tea, we are paying almost 15 shillings per kilo for manually plucked tea, while in machine plucking you are paying 5 shillings per kilo. And the unions, what I'm trying to say is they should be more open when we are trying to talk about having to engage them on some of these labor costs. As much as really we want to sustain the workers also, but we also have to be practical such that we also able to sustain the industry.
Good, very well. Gentlemen, thank you so much indeed for your inputs and for your time this evening here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Highly appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Richard Aiyabei is the Managing Director, Agricultural Development Corporation, and Stephen Githiga is the Managing Director, Sasini Group, joining us here tonight to help understand and expand our scope on issues agriculture. Thank you so much indeed for your company. Let's move on, where Equity Group made 19 billion shillings in 2017 full-year net profit, representing a 14% year-on-year increase, weathering a prolonged electioneering period and the effect of interest rate cuts. The profit was driven by a 24% growth in non-funded income to 28 billion shillings and automation of operations that saw digital platform handle 94% of the lender's transactions.